She called me on a Tuesday morning, which was already unusual. My daughter never calls on weekday mornings, she texts. She's always texted, ever since she was old enough to have a phone. So when her name lit up my screen at 8:47 a.m., while I was still on my second cup of coffee, I knew something was off. I picked up on the first ring. Dad. That was it. Just my name. The way she said it, quiet, careful, like she was choosing the word, told me everything I needed to know before she said anything else. What's wrong? A pause. I need you to take Lily for a few days, maybe a week. Hank has a work thing in Phoenix and I have the deposition starting Thursday, and I can't have her home alone after school. And the aftercare program at her school is full and I didn't know who else to. Of course, I said. Bring her Friday. She exhaled. Thank you, Dad. I didn't think anything of it. My granddaughter Lily was 8 years old, sharp as a tack, and we got along fine. I had retired 2 years earlier from 31 years in the fire department, so my schedule was my own. I had the room. I had the time. Watching Lily for a week while my daughter worked a big case seemed like the simplest thing in the world. I had no idea what I was about to find out. My daughter dropped Lily off that Friday evening around 6. Lily walked in carrying her backpack and a small duffel bag, and she went straight to the guest room without being asked, like she already knew where to go. That wasn't odd in itself. She'd stayed over plenty of times, but she was quieter than usual. Lily is normally a talker. She narrates things. She'll describe a cartoon she watched in full detail from beginning to end while you're just trying to eat breakfast. That evening, she sat at the kitchen table while I heated up some leftover chili, and she didn't say much at all. You hungry? I asked. She looked up, nodded. I set a bowl in front of her and put the cornbread on a plate in the center of the table. She waited. That was the first thing I noticed. She waited. I hadn't told her to wait. I hadn't said grace or anything like that. She just sat there with her hands in her lap, not touching the food, watching me. I sat down. Go ahead, sweetheart. Eat. She picked up her spoon slowly and started in on the chili. After maybe 2 or 3 bites, she stopped and looked at the cornbread. Then she looked at me. Can I have some of that? She asked. Of course. Help yourself. She reached out and took one piece. Ate it in careful bites. When it was gone, she glanced at the plate again. There were 3 more pieces sitting right there. Go ahead, I said. Have another one. Something crossed her face that I didn't know how to read at the time. It was fast. Relief, maybe. Or surprise. She took a second piece. And then she stopped. Even though there was still food on the plate, even though she was clearly still hungry, I could tell by the way she'd been eating, methodical, focused, like someone who doesn't waste a single bite. I didn't say anything right then. I told myself she was just tired. Kids get quiet when they're tired. Kids have weird eating phases. I'd raised one myself, and I knew better than to make a fuss over a full plate. But that night, after she'd gone to bed, I walked past the guest room and the door was open a crack. I glanced in out of habit, old fireman instinct, always checking, and the light from the hallway caught something on the nightstand, a plastic sandwich bag. She'd taken 2 of the dinner rolls I'd left in a basket on the counter and put them in a bag and set them right there by her bed. I stood in that hallway for a long moment, 8 years old, saving dinner rolls, setting them by her pillow like they were something precious. I went back to the kitchen and sat down and I thought about that for a while. The next morning was Saturday. I made pancakes, my standard move with Lily because she'd always loved them. I put a stack on her plate and set the syrup and the butter on the table and watched her again. She ate the first 2 pancakes completely. Then she looked at the remaining one on her plate. Then she looked at the remaining one on her plate. Then she looked at me. You don't have to ask, I said. Whatever's on your plate is yours. She blinked. What if I want more? Then I'll make more. She stared at me like I'd said something in a foreign language. I made 2 more and set them in front of her and she ate every bite. When she finished, she sat back and I saw her press her hand flat against her stomach, just for a second, like she was making sure the food was real. That was the moment I knew this wasn't about being tired. Something was wrong. I let it go through the morning. We watched some TV. I took her to the park down the street and she ran around for a while and seemed more like herself. But at lunch, it happened again. She ate carefully. She watched me. She waited for some kind of signal before she took more. I gave her the signal and she ate more and every single time there was that same flicker of something on her face. After lunch, she asked if she could go to her room. I said sure. Told her I'd be on the back porch if she needed me. I gave it 20 minutes. Then I went upstairs. I knocked on the door frame. The door was open. She was sitting on the bed reading a book, or pretending to. "Hey," I said, "you doing okay?" She nodded. I sat down in the small chair by the window. Outside, the maple in the backyard was just starting to turn. I looked at it for a second. "Lily," I said, "I want to ask you something, and I need you to know that whatever you tell me, you're not going to be in trouble. I'm not going to be upset with you. I'm just your grandpa, and I love you, and I'm asking because I care about you. Okay?" She looked up from the book. "Why did you save those rolls last night and put them by your bed?" The longest pause I have ever waited through from an 8-year-old. Then, in case. In case of what? She looked back down at the book. "In case I get hungry later." "Lily." I kept my voice even. "Calm. Do you get hungry at home? Like really hungry?" Another pause. Smaller this time. "Sometimes." I did not call my daughter that afternoon. I needed to understand what I was dealing with before I went making accusations I couldn't support. I also did not want to frighten Lily or make her feel like she'd done something wrong by talking to me. That evening after dinner, which she ate all of and seconds, and I didn't say a word about it, I told her I was going to read in the living room and she was welcome to come sit with me if she wanted. She brought her book and curled up in the armchair across from mine. At some point, she fell asleep. I covered her with the blanket from the couch and sat there in the quiet. I've spent my life walking into situations that other people walk away from. 31 years. You learn something about reading a scene. You learn what disorder looks like, what fear looks like, what someone's survival response looks like when it's become automatic. I had seen children in bad situations over the years, not often, but enough, and I knew, sitting there in my living room looking at my granddaughter curled up in that armchair, that the way she approached food was not normal child behavior. It was learned. It was strategic. It was the behavior of a child who had been hungry often enough and long enough that she had built a system around it. The rolls by the pillow. The careful watching. The way she paused before taking anything. The relief on her face when I told her she could have more. No 8-year-old develops that on her own. Sunday morning, she climbed up onto the bar stool at the kitchen counter while I made eggs, and she started talking a little more. Told me about her class at school. Told me her teacher's name was Mrs. Albright and that she was pretty nice, except she gave too much reading homework. I listened and flipped the eggs and felt the conversation settle into something easier. Then she said, out of nowhere, "Grandpa, do you have a rule about food?" I turned around. "What do you mean?" She was looking at the counter. "Like a chart or something." "No," I said. "No chart. You eat when you're hungry. That's the rule." She nodded slowly. "Do you have a chart at home?" I asked. I kept my voice completely neutral. She didn't answer right away. Then, "There's a paper on the refrigerator." "What kind of paper?" "It has the week on it, like the days." She traced a grid on the counter with one finger. "There are boxes." I turned back to the stove so she couldn't see my face. "What are the boxes for?" "It's for tracking. If I do my chores and my homework and stuff. And if I," she paused, "if I follow the rules. What happens when the boxes get checked? Then I can eat dinner." I turned off the burner. I stood there with my hand still on the handle of the pan, and if the boxes don't get checked? Silence. "Lily, then it's not a dinner night." She said it the way you say something you've repeated so many times it's lost its meaning, like a policy, like weather. "It's okay. It's how Hank says you learn responsibility." I put the eggs on her plate. I set it in front of her. I sat down across from her and I watched her eat, and I said nothing because there was nothing I trusted myself to say. I called my daughter that afternoon while Lily was watching TV. I walked out to the backyard and stood by the fence and I told her what Lily had told me. Quietly, carefully. I laid it out the same way I used to write up incident reports. No extra words, no editorializing, just the facts in order. My daughter was silent for so long that I checked my phone to see if the call had dropped. "She said that," my daughter said finally. Not a question. "She said it like it was normal," I told her. "She said it like it was just the way things are." I heard my daughter's breathing change. "How long have you and Hank been doing the chore chart thing?" I asked. We have a chore chart, she said, her voice careful and tight. But it's to keep her organized. Food is not part of that. A pause. Food was never part of that. Then someone added it, I said. Another silence. Longer this time. I'm at the hotel, she said. The depositions go through Wednesday. I know. Lily's fine here. She's safe. But when you get back, you need to look at that refrigerator. I will. Her voice was different now. Lower. Dad, I need you to. I'm not going anywhere, I said. She's here. She's eating. She's okay. She's called me. She called me Tuesday night. She had driven back early from Phoenix. Hank hadn't known she was coming. She found the chart on the refrigerator. It wasn't a chore chart. Or not just a chore chart. It was a system. It had rows for each day of the week and columns for a list of about 12 different requirements. Lily's handwriting on most of the rows. The child had been required to initial her own boxes. At the top, in Hank's handwriting, privilege tracking sheet. Lily. Dinner was one of the listed privileges. So was breakfast on weekends. My daughter photographed the whole thing before she said a word to Hank. Then she called a family attorney. Then she called me. I'm taking her to my mother's, she started. She's here, I said. She's with me. She's not going anywhere until you tell me otherwise. Okay. A breath. Okay, Dad. Keep her there. The next 3 weeks were the kind of weeks I hope no one ever has to live through. My daughter moved out of the house she shared with Hank and into a temporary rental 2 miles from my place. She met with her attorney, then a child psychologist her attorney recommended, then a social worker from the county. She had Lily evaluated. The psychologist confirmed what I already knew. Lily showed behavioral patterns consistent with food insecurity, hoarding, hypervigilance around meals, anxiety about resource access. The word the psychologist used was conditioned. The child had been conditioned to treat food as something that had to be earned, and earned imperfectly because the requirements kept shifting. The pediatrician's records were requested. Lily had dropped 14% of her body weight in the 8 months since Hank and my daughter had gotten married. 14%. My daughter had noticed Lily was thinner, but Hank had told her it was a growth phase. She'd believed him because she trusted him, because she'd been working 70-hour weeks on a major case and had been, by her own painful admission, not paying close enough attention. She didn't need me to tell her that. She was telling herself that plenty. Hank's attorney sent letters. The letters were full of language about parental discretion and household management and the importance of structure for children. My daughter's attorney responded. The court got involved. I attended every hearing I was allowed to attend. I sat in those chairs in the hallway outside the courtroom, and I waited, and I thought about all the times I picked Lily up from school, or taken her for ice cream, or helped her with a science project, and I had not seen this. I'd seen her maybe once a month. I had not seen it. That kept coming back to me. I had not seen it. She had hidden it or not known how to name it, or both. An 8-year-old built a whole private system of survival, and none of the adults who loved her had known. That is the thing that will stay with me for the rest of my life. The hearing was in November. Hank's attorney argued that the chart was a behavioral support tool, mischaracterized by an upset child. He brought in a parenting coach, an actual parenting coach, who testified about the importance of earned rewards in child development. My daughter's attorney brought in the pediatric records, the weight loss, the psychologist's report, 3 months of food journals. Lily had started keeping with her therapist, where she described, in her own 8-year-old words, the night she went to bed hungry because she hadn't completed enough boxes. The judge was a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on a chain. She read through the documentation for a very long time before she spoke. She awarded primary custody to my daughter, effective immediately. She ordered Hank to have no unsupervised contact with Lily. She ordered a full guardian ad litem investigation into the prior 8 months. She also said something I will not forget. She looked at Hank's attorney and she said that the framing of food as a conditional reward for a child is not a parenting methodology. It is deprivation, and she wanted that on the record. It is bevervation, and she wanted that on the record. It has been 7 months since that November. Lily lives with my daughter now, in the small rental that has gradually become a real home. She has a therapist she likes, a woman who has a rescue dog that comes to sessions which Lily loves. She goes to the same school. She sees her friends. She is doing better. The food hoarding mostly stopped around the 3rd month. Mostly. Sometimes I open the guest room when she's staying over and I still find a granola bar tucked under the pillow, and I don't say anything. I just leave it there. She'll stop when she feels safe enough to stop. Last month, she stayed over for a weekend, and on Sunday morning, she came into the kitchen while I was making bacon and eggs, and she climbed up on the bar stool and she said, completely unprompted, "Grandpa, can I crack one of the eggs?" I handed her the egg. She cracked it perfectly, and she grinned at me. That grin. It went straight through me. She ate 3 full plates that morning and asked for a piece of toast after, and I gave it to her, and I didn't make a single face about any of it. When she was done, she pushed back from the counter and said that was really good, in the satisfied, easy way that children are supposed to say that. Like, food is just food. Like eating is just something you do. She's going to be all right. I believe that now in a way I didn't let myself believe it for a long time. But I keep thinking about the Tuesday morning she arrived at my door. The quiet. The waiting. The roll she saved and put by her bed. I keep thinking about how close I came to not noticing, how easy it would have been to write it off as a tired kid, a picky eater, a phase. If you are reading this and something about a child you know feels off, something small, something you can't quite name, trust that feeling. Ask the question. Sit down across from that child and ask the question, gently and without judgment, and then listen to what they tell you. Children do not always have words for what is happening to them, but they will show you if you pay attention. Willie showed me with a dinner roll. That was enough. I keep coming back to the dinner roll, not the courtroom, not the pediatric records, not the judge's words. As important as all of that was, what I come back to is a plastic sandwich bag sitting on a nightstand in my guest room, with 2 dinner rolls inside it, placed there by an 8-year-old who wasn't sure there would be food in the morning. That image does something to me that I can't fully explain, because Lily didn't do that out of defiance or mischief. She did it out of intelligence. She looked at her situation, assessed the risk, and made a plan. A child who has been failed by the adults around her will still find a way to survive. That's not weakness. That's something closer to the opposite. What I've had to sit with in the months since all of this is my own part in it. I didn't cause what happened to Lily, but I also didn't see it coming. I had been in that child's life for all 8 years of it, and I missed something that, in hindsight, I can trace back further than I want to admit. The signs were small. The signs are always small at first, and I was not paying close enough attention. That's a hard thing to carry, but I think carrying it honestly is better than setting it down. It keeps me sharper. It keeps me looking. There's something I've come to believe about the way cause and effect works in a family, not in any mystical sense, just the plain, observable kind. The choices adults make ripple outward in ways they don't always account for. Hank made choices. He framed them as structure, as discipline, as teaching a child responsibility. But the actual effect of those choices was a little girl who hid food under her pillow and flinched when someone offered her seconds. Actions have consequences that outlast the intentions behind them. That's not philosophy. That's just what I watched happen in real time. What pulled Lily through, what I believe will continue to pull her through, is not any single rescue moment. It's something quieter than that. It's the accumulation of small, honest things. Her mother, who had to look directly at a failure she'd been too busy to see and choose to act on it anyway, even when it was painful and public and expensive. The therapist who showed up every week with a calm dog and no judgment. And Lily herself, who at 8 years old was already doing something that takes most people decades to learn. She was telling the truth about what she needed, even when she didn't have the words for it. She was showing people. She trusted that if she showed someone the right way, they would see. I want to be the kind of person she believed I was when she saved those roles. Someone who would notice. Someone who would ask. Someone who would stay. I'm still working on that. But that Sunday morning when she cracked the egg and grinned at me across the kitchen, that grin told me we're both going to be okay. Not because everything worked out perfectly, but because we did the next right thing, one morning at a time.